But now we'll go to Division II, Region VI. And we'll first start with the number 8 Shoremen of Avon Lake visiting the number 1 Eagles of Avon. Avon came into this game undefeated, and it was their first meeting that was kind of interesting. Avon went to Avon Lake and absolutely dominated in Week 2. It was 31-7. What would happen in this meeting? Well, it started off, it was a hard-fought game the whole way, but it started off with a Mark Pappas to Jason Sullivan touchdown pass that made it 7-0 for Avon Lake. Then Avon would score 3 times before half to jump out to a 16-7 lead. Thanks to a pass from Matt Kelly to Mitch Cooper, a touchdown run by Mason McElmore, and a field goal by Mitch Cooper as well. And Ed, you'd be impressed. Cooper hit 2 field goals in this game, one from, I believe, 43 yards, if I remember right, and 23 yards. So 2 pretty decent field goals there by Avon. But it was 16-7 at the half. Avon led. Then Avon would score first in the second half with a Mason McElmore touchdown. It was 23-7 Avon in the third quarter. And just when you think Avon had momentum and the tides have turned once again to Avon, quarterback Mark Pappas wasn't about to roll over in this game, throwing 2 straight touchdown passes to Denny Burns and Carson Toy. That cut the lead to 23-21. Avon still did have the lead, though, in the game. Then Avon would get a 43-yard field goal from Mitch Cooper to extend the lead 26-23. Avon Lake, though, they would answer with a Tyler Nelson touchdown run to give them the lead 27-26. And then this was huge near the end of the game with Avon driving. Andrew Buttre saved the day and preserved the Avon Lake upset with a one-handed interception in the end zone as the Shoremen upset the Eagles of Avon 27-26 to advance to the next round in the semifinals. They improved to 8-3 as Avon ends their season with a 10-1 record, and a great season by Avon. You know, they went 10-0 to end the regular season. They lose and now are 10-1. But man, that game went back and forth. Avon, was dominant for most of the game, and Avon Lake just didn't give up and eventually caught momentum in a bottle there and kept going with it.
Yeah.
So a great win by Avon Lake as they advance. Now the next game was number 5 Glenville at number 4 Anthony Wayne, and junior quarterback Nick Schneider rushed for 197 yards and 3 touchdowns for Anthony Wayne, who held Glenville to 7 points in this game. And Glenville's only score was by senior running back Kobe Bryant, as he scored a rushing touchdown for Glenville, which finishes its season at 7-4. They lose 21-7 versus Anthony Wayne.
Wait, this is what he's doing in his
Kobe retired and now he's playing high school football.
Well, this Kobe
can he even do that?
This Kobe Bryant is spelled Coby.
Oh, okay.
So
all right.
a little bit different, but I like their idea there. You know that that's what they're thinking.
The Black
about.
Mamba could do whatever he wants, but I mean, to play Division II high school football.
I know he didn't go to college. If he played in a college football game, I'd see that to be somewhat believable.
I know. It's impressive. He's the Black Mamba part dose.
Yeah.
Well, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But, hey, he scored a rushing touchdown. Congratulations to Glenville. They had a great season, and they end at 7-4 on the year. Anthony Wayne now moves on to face Avon Lake, and that's, I believe, in Sandusky. Let me double-check. It's at Sandusky Cedar Point Stadium, I believe. Yes, it is. Sandusky Strobel Field at Cedar Point Stadium. Avon Lake, the number 8 seed at 8-3, takes on White House Anthony Wayne, the number 4 seed at 8-3.
How about Sandusky, by the way? Really? Changing their stadium to Cedar Point Stadium? Are they trying to compete with Kalahari Field where Huron is?
Exactly.
Really got the market cornered down there.
Let me ask you a question. What's the line like to get into Cedar Point Field?
You got to wait. They have rides around the stadium, and you just have to wait.
That was a joke, but
I'm sure the people out there got it.
Well,
they're laughing right now. You just can't hear them.
Ed didn't laugh.
In his mind, he did. All right, moving on to number 7 Westlake at number 2 Holland Springfield. Holland Springfield is 10-0 as well coming in. And Westlake, well, they were led by Trey Bylois. He accounted for 6 touchdowns in this game to lead the Demons to a 27-point fourth quarter. And at some point in this game, Westlake actually trailed in the fourth quarter 41-14. Unbelievable how they came back, and it started in the fourth with a Trey Bylois rushing touchdown. They would cut into the lead at 41-21. Then Bylois, a touchdown pass later. Westlake was down 2 scores with just under 9 minutes remaining in the game. On Springfield's next possession, Westlake senior Trevor Belozer blocked a field goal attempt and returned it 65 yards for a touchdown to cut the deficit to 1 score. Westlake would stop him on defense again, and Westlake's offense was ready to score again. Trey Bylois would run it in to tie the game. Now, here's an interesting point in this game. Westlake had a chance to take a 42-41 lead, but missed the extra point. They ended up going into overtime.
Ugh.
And, I mean, you get that far, you score 27 points in the fourth quarter. I've never seen a 41-14 lead into the fourth quarter. I mean, that's unbelievable to me to come back.
At a certain point, there's a running clock there,
30,
too.
yeah. Well, he didn't get. They must not have triggered it, right?
Yeah, I don't. It didn't say in any of the articles that it was a running fourth quarter clock at that point. But I mean, that is an absolute huge lead. And I think the blocked field goal attempt returned 65 yards for a touchdown was absolutely huge by Trevor Belozer. He did a great job on that defensive end there. But in overtime, Westlake won the toss, and they elected to go on offense right away. And that's when, again, Trey Bylois found senior running back Tarek Beach for a touchdown pass. It was 48-41, and now Holland Springfield had an opportunity to tie it and keep their undefeated season alive. But the Westlake defense had other ideas, holding the Springfield offense and coming away with an upset, 48-41 in overtime, and advancing to the semifinals. Westlake improved to 8-3. Holland Springfield ends its season with a 10-1 record. But now, who would Westlake face in the next game, Midview or Olmsted Falls? And the Southwestern Conference had 5 teams.
Yeah.
In this Division II,
it's like a regular workday for you, Ralph.
Yeah, jeez. I mean, not giving me a break here, but let's give some stats. Senior wide receiver Connor Sternecker caught 2 touchdown passes in the victory, and Trey Bylois had 6 touchdowns, 2 of them on the ground and 4 in the air. A great job by Westlake to get a win there, and their magical season keeps going. As what a turnaround this year. Yeah. And now they will face the winner of Olmsted Falls and Midview. And Olmsted Falls traveled to Midview earlier in the season. Midview went to Olmsted Falls and won 28-21. It was a dramatic finish from a Southwestern Conference game earlier in the year. Now it's playoff time, and Midview had problems stopping the Olmsted Falls triple option on this night as Spencer Linville could not be stopped. He rushed for 229 yards and 2 touchdowns on the night. Brett Hootke, listen to this. He had 1 pass on the day, and it was probably the biggest pass he's ever had in this game. Only 1 pass on the night, and he threw it for a huge 58-yard touchdown to Andrew Tursky. 58 yards. That's the only pass by Olmsted Falls. Otherwise, the Bulldogs had 429 total yards in this game, 377 coming on the ground. And this game went back and forth pretty much all game, where Olmsted Falls built a 31-20 lead in the fourth quarter, but Midview came back behind, you guessed it, Dustin Crum, who had an absolute unbelievable season. Come through a touchdown pass to Isaiah Johnson and got a 2-point conversion. That cut the lead to 31-28, but that's as close as it got for Midview. Olmsted Falls recovered an onside kick that Midview tried to get. Midview did end up with one more shot at the end, and it was a Hail Mary that actually Keith Johnson caught the ball, but he was out of bounds, could not get a foot in the end zone. So he was out of bounds, and the Bulldogs advance as they face Westlake, which will be at Strongsville Pat Gatan Stadium. Dustin Crum ends a great career at Midview. Let's give him credit. What a season with him, rushing and throwing the football this year. He really led that Midview team all season. And Olmsted Falls continues on as they improve to 8-3. Midview at 9-2. And a great season, though, by Midview. And a lot of these teams, you lose heartbreakers like this. It could go either way. But it's going to be an unbelievable tournament as it continues. Now you'll have Avon Lake, the number 8 seed, going against number 4 White House Anthony Wayne at Sandusky Strobel Field at Cedar Point, and number 7 Westlake at 8-3 will face number 6 Olmsted Falls 8-3 at Strongsville Pat Catan Stadium on Friday night. And what an absolute unbelievable week of football. Some upsets, a little surprise. Avon and Midview at the top of the conference, the powerhouse teams. And in the playoffs, anything can happen, and I think it showed you this week in the playoffs.
I read something over the weekend about this specific region, and it was a return of the old guard of the Southwestern Conference with Avon Lake and Olmsted Falls. Prior to Avon and Midview joining, where they were dominating the West Shore Conference, Avon Lake and Olmsted Falls were the class of the SWC. Basically just trading years on and off, being conference champions, and Avon Lake had a major run there for quite a while. And since Avon and Midview have joined, they've taken turns beating everybody else up and not really losing anybody besides each other. So it was, I'm sure for old fans of the old Southwestern Conference, if they didn't have a horse in the race, I'm sure they were quite happy to see two of the older teams of that conference move on, and you're never going to go wrong with Avon Lake and Olmsted Falls. They're two solid programs. I mean, these are both programs that won state championships, in the early 2000s. So you're looking at Olmsted Falls and Westlake, another Southwestern staple. So you're going to be guaranteed at least one Southwestern Conference team in the regional championship. And then we'll see what Avon Lake can do against White House Anthony Wayne up in Sandusky.
Well, what strikes me is as much chalk as there was in Region 5, there's not so much in Region. There's a lot of chaos right now in this particular region because you see number 1 seed. Yeah, that's a close loss, and an 8 seed beating a 1 seed. That's that's great. That's despite who it is, that's a team that Avon Lake was begging to get into the playoffs come week 10.
Yeah, they just made it because of a loss by Toledo St. John.
Exactly.
By Toledo
And
Whitmer.
now they come in to beat the number 1 seed, and then Olmsted Falls to turn around and beat a team like Midview, who Midview is a tough team to beat. I mean, you mentioned it in your recap, Rob. That triple option is no joke because Crum can beat you, and their running backs can beat you, and if that doesn't work, he can throw it over the top, and their receivers can beat you. So for Olmsted Falls to come into this wasn't at neutral sites either. This was at home field advantage here, and to come in and win that game, and especially like Westlake. Hats off to Westlake. 2 in the season last year, and now they're regional semifinals. Beating a team in overtime who was undefeated, who nobody had beaten, and to come out of that with a win, and now they're facing a familiar opponent in Olmsted Falls in what is pretty much the most neutral site of the games I can see right now because, that's like right in the middle between those two great communities. So that's going to be a fun game to watch. And again, like you said, Rob, the SWC is well represented in this region. So it's going to be fun. I'd love to see Avon Lake, overcome Anthony Wayne and play the winner.
See what happens.
And just because then at that point you wonder where that neutral site's going to be for that regional final.
Well, and looking at Westlake, they did play Olmsted Falls once this season. It was at Westlake, and Westlake was or actually I think it was at Olmsted Falls, and they did win. Mm-hmm. But it was a really close game. A lot of these teams just played such close games during the season. But you look at all these guys. Olmsted Falls a few years ago went 1 in the season. Yep. They really struggled because they were a younger football team, and look how they've really developed. Tom DeLuca, the head coach there, really has done a nice job with Olmsted Falls, and Jason Hall at Westlake. Westlake was a team, they were really impressive for a few years under Mark Campo, who came over from Admiral King. And then they struggled for a few years where they only had a few wins during the season, and now they're back, making the playoffs and had some really nice wins on the season. So really, Olmsted Falls and Westlake struggled at some point. They got back, like Ed said, and Ed, you brought up some really great points of, both those teams were pretty dominant. Olmsted Falls, like you said, won a state championship, and they were always impressive on the football side of things. So this is going to be one of those games. When you look at Westlake, their offense is just so impressive. They can put up some points, but can their defense, stop that triple option from Olmsted Falls. I think you have to really try to contain Spencer Linville here, because Spencer Linville, if you can't contain him, look what Olmsted Falls did. They passed the ball one time. It was for a touchdown, but they rushed for – Spencer Linville had 229 yards rushing. You have to be able to somewhat contain him, and if you can't contain him, it could be a long night.
Well, the first matchup between these two teams was a 34-31 victory by Olmsted Falls when they hosted Westlake in Week 2. So
so actually Olmsted Falls won that game, not Westlake.
No, that's my fault. You're right. Westlake, my bad.
Okay.
I transposed that. Yeah, Westlake, got the better of them in Week 2.
Okay.
Obviously, things have changed. Now we're looking at literally a full season has passed since they last saw each other. And so I would imagine, a team like Olmsted Falls, what they're going to do. They're tried and true, triple option. They're going to do what they're going to do. Westlake, with Trey Bialois, he's just gotten better as the year has gone on, as the year has progressed. So it'll be a good matchup to see. I'm sure each team's going to have a little bit of wrinkles that that the other team hasn't seen since they last played. Another thing too is, you got these teams like Olmsted Falls for the second straight week's going to take on another Southwestern Conference foe.
Yeah,
but with the exception of their first game of the year, they've played nothing but SWC teams, and there's a potential they might play Avon Lake in the next round. So you're playing conference. You're going to be playing 12 straight conference games essentially.
It's just unbelievable how it kind of panned out this year, because there were opportunities that maybe there wouldn't be as many SWC teams in the playoffs, but it just worked out where there's five out of the 10 teams made the playoffs.
It just speaks to the strength of that conference. You see teams like Avon Lake getting in by the skin of their teeth because even their wins, the wins they get in that conference are so valuable. And the fact that their conference play starts week 2, week 3, it's not your typical 3-4 week ramp up to the division. I think they get one non-conference game and then it's conference play for the next 9 weeks. So that's a meat grinder of itself. That prepares you for having to go through the playoffs at this point. So a lot of these Southwestern Conference teams are coming into this playoff round maybe a little bit more prepared and more battle hardened, and not worried about who they're playing, not worried that they're playing Midview again, because you know what, they may have got us that first time, but we're going to get them now. Same thing with Avon Lake. Avon was cruising at that point in that game. They were cruising. They were up.
Yeah, 23-7 at one point.
And in the second half, and at that point, you're just wondering where's the urgency on Avon's part to just run away and hide with that game, preserve it. But credit Avon Lake for having the fortitude to say, hey, let's go out there and win this game, and they did.
Well, Avon Lake did that, and Westlake was down 41-14 going into the fourth quarter, and they turned that game around. So you just never know in the playoffs what can happen. But we're going to step away. We'll take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about the Buckeye Bucks, who had a game in the first round that Ed will talk a little bit about. We'll also talk about our game of the week was number 7 Euclid and number 2 St. Edward. We were at that game. We'll tell you all about that. And where are we going to be right here for Week 12 in the playoffs? It's the semifinals. It's a big game this week. There's a lot of big games this week. So we'll tell you where we're going to be at this upcoming week. We're Sports on Tap. It's our Ohio High School football coverage. It's playoff edition. Live from Studio J in Brunswick, Ohio. We'll be right back.